Well, okay. So for all the ones that don't dial in. So welcome everyone to this coffee session with the CEO. And I'm delighted to have today Andrew Cameron, the CEO of FeelTect, here with me. A bit logistics. So in the beginning, maybe some of you still haven't heard what is EIT Health and EIT Health alumni. A few words. Where's my mouse? So we are a community of health innovators across Europe. We have actually more than 2,000 members across different chapters. We have different volunteers in major European health tech hubs from Lisbon and Barcelona all the way to Westport and Dublin, Paris, and also, for example, in Scandinavia, in Tallinn and Estonia. And what we do is, like, across the year, we do different events that help other health innovators who have previously participated in EIT health programs, either educational or acceleration or innovation ones. And it's very easy to become a member. If you have participated previously in any program, you can go to alumni.eithealth.eu and dial in. Or, like, if this is your first event, you're participating today, after this event, you're also eligible to join, and you can stay up to date with all the news happening in the European health field, as well as, for example, even see the job opportunities in the field if you have, for example, graduating from a degree program and looking for a job or internship. So many opportunities. And after this, you can go to alumni.eithealth.eu and check out more. But coming back today, so we have Andrew here from FeelTect. They're based in Ireland, and they were also the winners of a senior category of EIT Health Fellowship Network Showcase in 2020. And now I'm passing the floor to Andrew, where he will be giving a brief introduction, what he's been doing in recent past and currently ongoing. And then after that introduction from him, we can go an interactive Q&A session where you can ask your questions directly from Andrew himself. So floor is yours, Andrew. Okay, thank you very much for that, Timo. I'm just gonna share my, sorry. Is this okay? Everyone can see? Yes, you can go to presentation mode. Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to give a bit of a talk today. My name is Andrew Cameron. I'm the CEO of FeelTect. And yeah, when I sort of was given the task of coming up with the theme of the talk for today, I was trying to think about, you know, like, what are we actually going through on a consistent basis with our journey as a startup? And I think one of the things that we are constantly trying to balance is making sure that we have a big vision and, you know, we're selling that vision, but also making sure that we explain to people that we are focused and we know what our next steps are. So with that, the agenda for the talk is just going to be a little bit about how we selected the need through the BioInnovate Ireland program, selecting the technology direction, and selecting you know, how we actually then refined the need and refined the technology direction to maybe look at it in a more big picture scope, and then to actually sort of reflect back on where we are at the moment and what our next steps are in the journey. And just to give you a little bit of background for myself, you know, I was actually an academic, I guess, originally. I did a PhD back in Australia in tissue engineering, and I came over to Ireland back in 2012 now. I actually got my Irish citizenship last year, so I was really excited about that. And when I came to Ireland, I was working in a research group in Dublin in the Royal College of Surgeons, and my real passion was research commercialization. So That essentially led me to the BioInnovate Ireland program, which is run out of NUI Galway. To give you a quick flavor of what that is, it's essentially a needs-led innovation program, which is based on the biodesign program out of Stanford. There's been, a huge number of success stories, and the general formula to the program, which is run over 10 months, is identify, invent, and implement. So identifying needs, then inventing on those needs, and then implementing those solutions. So I was in the team back in 2016, 2017. My team consisted of me as an engineer, Sinead, Siobhan, and Alice. And yeah, we got along for some of it. and I think, yeah, like we're all really good friends now. So like it was great to have those kind of different backgrounds all coming together, looking for unmet clinical needs. And that process involved 8 weeks of clinical immersion in different hospitals. So our hospitals were based in Galway in the University Hospital, and then we went over to the Mayo Clinic in the USA. Two very different sort of clinical settings. So it was actually great to get that perspective when we were trying to look for unmet clinical needs. The way that we went about that was observing and cataloging different observations in a multitude of clinical settings. So it could be anything from the cath lab to the surgical theatres, even in the patient waiting rooms. And we essentially made all of our observations, and we went home and we did a lot of research to try and put those observations into context. Used a lot of YouTube. There's some pretty interesting videos out there on YouTube. And then from those about 1,100 observations, we coalesced them into about 190 needs. And these were sort of in the format of a way to, and then describing the need and describing what you're trying to achieve with that, that need to be addressed. The one thing that we wanted to make sure of when we made those need statements was that we didn't constrain the need to a particular solution. And I'll talk about like how we actually did that a little bit wrong with our initial needs. So the other way that we looked at, I guess, filtering those needs was by selecting on a criteria. And we defined our criteria at the start of the needs finding process. So things like the market size, what outcomes you're looking to have, whether something is cost effective, and even how quickly you want to achieve market entry. So once we had those needs, we then did a series of rounds where we filtered down those needs. And eventually we all sort of ended up with our top priorities. So the need that I ended up settling upon was a way to improve the application, maintenance, and self-management of compression therapy for venous leg ulcers, for improved healing outcomes, reduce costs, and enhance quality of life, which is a bit of a mouthful. But the way that we came about this was in the wound care clinics in the Mayo Clinic, and we were watching people from all over the world coming in with venous leg ulcers. I didn't know what a venous leg ulcer was, but essentially they were being hooked up to a huge pneumatic sleeve, and that actuated their leg, and ultimately the restoration of blood flow healed the ulcer, and they went home. When I came back to Ireland, I talked to the head of nursing at NUI Galway, Dr. Georgina Gethin, and I was telling her about my ideas for making a streamlined process for this. And she said, look, Andrew, we don't actually need anything as fancy as that. If we just had a way of improving the way that traditional compression therapy is applied to patients, that would have a huge impact on the way these wounds are being treated. And so that was a really nice way of like focusing myself on, on a target to go after. So compression therapy, it's the gold standard treatment for, venous leg ulcers, as I mentioned, and studies have actually shown if you increase compression pressure, you see an increase in healing rates. But unfortunately, in clinical practice, it's not as easy as that. If you apply too much pressure, it's actually dangerous. Too little is ineffective, and there's about a 90% failure to achieve targeted pressure. On top of that, there's about an 80% non-compliance rate. And even if you do apply compression correctly, you can lose up to 50%, due to loss of swelling. And COVID has had a huge interruption to the provision of care, leading to a 20 times increase in hospitalization if you don't receive that, I guess, essential form of treatment. So for our technology, we started off with an idea about, a blue sky project. It was almost like a science project for having a compression bandage that had inherent pressure sensing qualities. We went about, trying to design that, and we did actually design that. We had a set of criteria that we were trying to meet, but we quickly realized that the durability and washability design criteria that was necessary for that to be effective just wasn't, actually working. On top of that, we also got, told by a number of people in the industry that the last thing that anyone needed was another compression bandage. So from that, we went about looking at how we design a device that actually can be used with any compression bandage, and having a pressure monitor on that that transmitted to a digital interface, so a mobile app. And with a bit of feedback, this is the Tighter technology that we have today. So it's a wearable device that has a sensing arm that goes beneath the bandage, and that's attached to an electronics clip, and then that transmits signals to the mobile app. And so that's the point of care technology. By applying correct amount of pressure, you have the ability to reduce healing times. And that was a big criteria for us to meet. There is a significant addressable market just for that point of care technology alone. So about 1.35 billion across Europe and the USA. And we took it into our initial clinical validation, where we had experienced nurses applying compression with and without the use of the Tighter technology. And we enabled those experienced nurses to have a 6-fold improvement in their ability to achieve targeted pressure. So what we did then was see, all right, well, what's the impact of that on clinical outcomes for healing? So we went back to that previous data that I showed earlier, which was taken from other studies. We did the overlay of what pressure was achieved with our technology versus the standard compression. And from that, we realized we had the potential to have a 10-fold increase in healing rates. So that was really great, until we started talking to a few investors, and they said, this is actually really niche, it's really specific. And we don't know if the problem is actually related to compression. So that made us really think, what is the need? And maybe we were wrong by having that, solution constraint in our needs statement, like I mentioned earlier. So we went back to the drawing board and looked at, the bigger picture is here, trying to solve venous leg ulcers. There's 11.5 million venous leg ulcers each year. 50% of those have delayed healing, and 30% of those don't heal within a year. On top of that, it's costing about $16,000 in the USA per ulcer, 8,600 in Germany. 80% of these costs are related to the nurse's time, and these wounds consume about 1% of all healthcare spending in industrialized nations. So that's the big problem. That's what we should be going after. So we changed our need statement there to say, a way to increase healing rates and reduce workload in venous leg ulcer treatment for reduced costs and improve patient outcomes. Now, we'd already sort of shown how we could reduce the healing rates with that initial technology, but how are we going to go about reducing the workload? So that meant a redefinition of our technology direction, and not a complete redefinition, but building upon what we'd already done. So here we have Tighter. It's the first connected health technology for measuring and monitoring the sub-bandage pressure during compression therapy. So in addition to that point of care technology, we now implemented a digital platform. So a cloud database and a web-based dashboard. That meant that not only were you applying the correct amount of pressure in a clinical setting, but you could actually enable self-management, remote monitoring, and data optimization of care. And that then leads to reduced provider workloads, which was one of our key criteria for the new need. So this is just a very quick video to show you how the actual technology works, to give a bit of context. But you can see here, I'm putting in the sensing arm. From there, you attach the electronics clip. And then once that device is secured, you can then start applying the compression bandage. And you have 3 physiologically relevant positions, the B, B1, and C positions. And you can use that to then guide the correct amount of pressure using the mobile app. Once that's been applied, the patient can then wear that home. And as I mentioned, you can actually have the patient self-manage and apply different forms of compression therapy, and potentially have that supported by the remote digital platform. So this is, what we're trying to do, and it's very applicable to the COVID, pandemic and the way that the treatment is being provided right now. So our competitive advantage in the point of care solution, it's better than traditional compression because it measures pressure. It's better than physical indicators because it's more accurate. It's better than the handheld pressure sensors because it's usable and affordable. But really that digital platform provides the unparalleled capabilities for remote monitoring and data-driven optimization. So our value proposition is a 30% reduction in healing time, a 34% reduction in intervention frequency, and a 53% cost reduction. And now our addressable market isn't just related to the technology itself, but also the data that is within the digital platform. It's extremely valuable to a number of stakeholders. And then the bigger picture is, all right, well, where do we go to next? We have this device and it's being used by the healthcare professionals and the patients. We then have the ability to have data transmitted so you can have healthcare systems actually using it. But what we're looking at now is including more data around the wound care products that are being used with the technology and having that being of interest to, for example, product manufacturers. And then on top of that, combining different sensors or different types of data sets that would enable you to have individualized, optimized treatment by correlating and actually, I guess, processing that data. And what we really want to do here is actually fill a significant knowledge gap in the market around monitoring wound treatments. So a number of platforms monitor the healing. We want to be the go-to company for monitoring the treatment platform. Monitoring the treatment provided. And we've done some IP just recently to actually capture that. So that's our kind of big vision, but we do know exactly what we want to do right now. And it's a process of raising 900,000 to get that point of care technology into the marketplace. And from there, we can actually see how it's being used and help to then inform the later stages of the digital platform development. So using the user feedback and the customer feedback to finalize that digital platform, to complete the pivotal clinical studies, and then have full commercial launch of the entire product suite across the USA and Europe in 2023. And then from there, we can actually sort of look to actually expand those capabilities and even go into redefining the standard of care through that data analysis and optimization. We had to assemble a team to begin with, and we're still in that process. So, we've recently looked to bring on board a non-executive director who has a wealth of experience in the wound care sector. And on top of that, we have our advisory team, who is a panel of internationally recognized and respected key opinion leaders, not just in the clinical, but also the marketing and quality sector around wound care. So in summary, we started with looking for needs, and we made sure that, we weren't too broad. We had a set criteria for selection, but we did learn along the way that we shouldn't allow our solution to dictate or limit that need scope. Our solution, we went out and we actually sort of had a bit of a look at what we could do. We found that, there wasn't a good market fit for our initial technology direction. And the other thing is that, it's good to be, I guess, a bit, new in the technology direction, but don't be too academic about it. We listened to the input of users, and we then actually took that back and we sort of developed our new core technology, and we looked to go digital because it helped us broaden our horizons. On top of that, with our ambition, we do have a grand vision, and we try and use that grand vision to inspire investors, for example. But we're always cognizant of the fact that you need to make sure, that you have the very next step in your plan, mapped out completely. So we know exactly where we're going to next. And we're currently in the process of trying to build our team to make that plan happen. So the next steps, like I said, we're raising 900,000 euros in seed investment to bring our point of care technology onto the market. And from that, we want to solve the world. So that's it. Thanks very much for your time.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. It was, I think, very interesting to see how, there are some startups who are like developing a technology and then looking for a problem, but you had really like this granular approach to, hey, I mean, what are the needs out there, and like then how we can solve that most important need, and then like reiterating that, which I would say is maybe even like not really typical like for academics, that sometimes they take very small niche and then for the next 50 years they kind of stay in that niche. But you went really like nice and looking like, okay, this is maybe too small, that how we can make it more useful for the full community.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you know, my academic experience, we would come up with a technology, and you would just build and build and build on that one technology. And then one day you look up and say, where can I use this? And, you know, like, that's when you start to question, all right, well, what have I been doing all my time? But yeah, the BioInnovate process, it kind of flipped that completely. And it changed my mindset about how innovation could be done. And it was funny. It was almost like, you know, coming up with a solution during that needs finding process was really taboo. You know, like you were really discouraged against even letting yourself dream about a solution, because it can really bias, you know, your ability to see clearly where is the need.
And especially, I think, in medical field, where like, you know, often like the doctors or like providers have like a small niche for most of their practice. But I'm very happy now to open up for a Q&A, because I'm sure that Hannah, Gillian, Aaron, Anne, Lace and Michelle, and there are some other people dialing in and out, have been popping up in their mind in the last 10 minutes of this input from Andrew. So Andrew doesn't bite, neither do I. So this is now your opportunity to get these responses directly from Andrew.
Can I step in?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, brilliant, Andrew. I mean, the progress since I met you a number of years ago, it's phenomenal to see the difference from start to finish and how the needs has changed. And I suppose, you know, I'm 25 years in the healthcare setting, so well aware, and, you know, as well as ulcerations and that. Can I ask you a little bit about the regulatory process? How are you at that, and how are you finding it to date?
Yeah. That's, you know, like there's been a few sort of, you know, realizations in that area along our journey. You know, we always sort of started out thinking that we were going to be a class 1 technology, and we were going to target the European market first for a number of reasons, maybe even just because of proximity. It wasn't until not so long ago that we all of a sudden had this realization that we were making a technology that incorporated some form of software, even if it wasn't totally focused on software. But the new MDR has made it really complicated, you know, to actually have a form of software in there, and particularly around this Rule 11 that they've introduced. And so what we actually found is that our, you know, easiest path for regulatory approval was into the FDA as a class 1 exempt device. And with that, you know, we still have to go through all the verification validation processes, but yeah, we'll be registering as a class 1 device in the USA before we actually go through the CE mark as a class 2A device in Europe. So yeah, we were thankful for the, you know, the guidance that we got from a couple of experts in the field there that made us realize, well, actually, it made sense from a commercialization standpoint to go US first, even because that was the path of least resistance from a regulatory perspective.
And I think that's always, I mean, that's why I think also Ireland is a very interesting case, that historically Ireland has very good ties with both Europe and US, that probably being in Galway, in a program that has even links with Stanford, that it's easy to go either way.
Yeah, no, it is amazing how much, you know, there's a connection between Ireland and the USA. And, you know, just from the the startup companies in our network, we've never seen anyone kind of shy away from the US as a market to target, and there's a lot of good reasons for that.
Great. Any more questions from Michelle? I see you switched to Sweden.
Yeah. Yes, hi. Thanks, Andrew. Great presentation, really interesting. And I suppose it's kind of nice to see there's a lot of synergies between what you're doing and what we are, I guess, trying to do at the moment in terms of the digital aspect of it, where it's a pretty new development that we're looking at now, but and it's encouraging to see how you're going about it. I have a question around, so you were looking at reducing the provider workloads, and I guess the app is obviously going to help you to achieve that and then to also measure it. But initially, when you were looking at provider workloads, how did you go about calculating that, or putting a measurement around what the workload is, so that I guess in time you'd be able to demonstrate how you're reducing it?
Yeah, well, like the first thing that we realized was that there was a huge amount of data on where the budget allocation for treating venous leg ulcers lies. And as I mentioned, 80% of the budget for venous leg ulcers are associated with the nurse's time, or patient visits is what it's associated with specifically. So we knew for a start that there was an issue there, and that was an area for us to target in reduction.
Yeah.
The next thing that we looked at was, like what would things such as self-management enable with reducing nurses' time. And so, there was a couple of studies out there that were focused on adjustable Velcro wraps, for example, which is a form of compression that the patient can actually engage with. And they found that through the use of adjustable Velcro wraps, even without that digital support that we're putting forward, they had a reduction in patient visits of 34%. And so, from that, like we said, all right, firstly, we can reduce the length of time that a wound is healing for by just applying gold standard compression. So that's a 5-week reduction, that we could potentially save. And on top of that, we have a 34% reduction potential in reducing the frequency of visits within that length of time as well. So yeah, at this point, it's kind of an extrapolation of data, if you like. But yeah, we've used multiple kind of sources to give an indication of how digital could actually have a reduction in workload, and essentially an improvement in efficiencies as well.
Yeah.
The thing that is hard to calculate for us is that if we were able to optimize the standard of care and individually tailor the standard of care to every patient, which the use of digital technology enables, it's an accountability on a personal basis for the treatment that's being provided. Calculating what effect that's going to be is difficult, but we're just assuming that that's going to be a bonus effect on top of the other data that we've already collected.
Great, thanks, Cameron, and great presentation. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and we still have many people lined up. I see. Don't be shy. Oh, Leanne, feel free to ask a question from Andrew.
Hello, thanks for the presentation, Leisan. It's I'm a researcher. I have an academic background, so that's why I'm curious about that part of the journey. Sorry, I missed the beginning of the presentation, and from what I understood is that you come from the research, and then you had to you are expanding the scope, let's say. But I'm wondering how is the experience of the still conducting some research work while at the same time maintaining the business part of it and maintaining the business focus. How does it work for you? I'm really interested to know.
Yeah, it's a good question actually, and it was a struggle personally to kind of almost switch from being an academic mindset to a commercial or business mindset. Sometimes when you're in the academic role, if you identify an effect, you test, multiple different ways of why that effect is occurring, right? And you might do that for the purposes of making figures that you put into a paper that you submit to a journal. Whereas like in the commercial sense, it was almost as if you see an effect and it works, great, next thing, like, you know, so you didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to delve into the nitty gritty of the technology, and really it was more about trying to make sure that you delved into the commercial side of the business, and almost just making the assumption that the technology would be able to achieve, you know, what you wanted it to, as long as you had a good need for, you know, actually having that technology fit. And so, yeah, there's I guess the research project that we did within NUI Galway was supported by Enterprise Ireland, and it was through what they call a commercialization fund. And to be honest, it was much more heavily weighted, I felt, on the commercial case for the technology than the technical case for the technology. And in fact, like, as I mentioned, we did a complete pivot after 8 months of research on the first technology direction. And that was based on feedback that we got from, you know, there was also technical reasons, but it was also based on a commercial decision. So yeah, I don't look back, you know, with regret on going from academia to the commercialization side of things, but it was a little bit of a struggle to change your mindset and become more business focused.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess there is difference between, like, still it's research. It's commercial research, but it's just different type of research at some point.
Yeah, right? And what I do find is, like, you know, a lot of times now grant applications, even in like research, you know, there's a big focus on like, where is this going to be applied? You know, how is this going to benefit society? And it was those types of questions that kind of led me to, you know, be more interested in actually, I guess, a commercialization direction, because I did want to see, you know, the work I was doing be valuable, not just to my circle of academic colleagues, but to society. So, yeah, that was, you know, like one of the inspirations for taking this pathway.
Thank you.
So incredible journey, doing that transition between the sectors from academia to business. I think in our audience, we have all kinds of sectors represented. So don't be shy. Again, I see still many faces dialing in, which maybe currently I haven't got the chance. So you can, like, if you don't ask face to face, you can also put it in the chat. That's okay. I can read out the question. But it's a safe environment here, and I think the best way to get directly from the CEO the response about his journey. In the meantime, you mentioned that you are otherwise coming originally from Australia and now really like operating in Europe. Maybe if you are still in touch with what happens in Asia Pacific, how would you kind of see that kind of, I mean, innovation that at one point you think you want to also improve the healthcare out of the US and European Union, or this is like commercial reason to focus on the US and Europe first before going elsewhere?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. Like, you know, back when I was working in Australia, or even during my PhD, for example, you know, you had to really fight hard to get noticed. And I think that almost drove like some really exceptional research that's happening, you know, down there, because like it has to be exceptional for people to even realize it's happening. It's so far away. It's a huge benefit for sure here in Ireland and in Europe and the USA, because of the ability or ease of networking. And you know, it's more than just being able to pop over to a conference. Like it's an ecosystem that supports technology innovation, like it's, you know, manufacturing or, you know, other types of services that are are there to be able to, you know, lend a hand in the commercialization process. So it has been a focus just out of convenience to you know, think about Europe and the USA to begin with, but it's a huge untapped market to, you know, think about those other regions. Asia is massive, obviously, you know, and then Australia has extremely good conditions for doing studies, for example. Might not be the biggest market in the world, but it's got a really high standard of healthcare there. So yeah, we're keeping our eyes open, but it's, you know, part of that balance of being focused as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think but like, I think one of the cool things, like what you are currently developing, like what I also could see in the video, was that basically you're kind of tailoring people in the future, that when they want to do, like, thanks to the app and the sensor, they don't need that nurse over there, but they can like apply the pressure and, I mean, basically follow the guidance, like how in some other industries, let's say Taxify or Lyft or Uber, they have made many people taxi drivers, which previously, you know, you need to know the town, the London map by heart, but now you can like follow Google Maps, take people from there to there. It looks like using your technology, people can also work in the future in healthcare in a way that, thanks to the app and the sensor, anybody could like more or less follow the care guidelines.
Yeah, and like, we're not at all sort of advocating for doing away with healthcare professionals. It's more about using their time efficiently, and, you know, having them provide their expert insights and, you know, I guess support patients or carers to take on board, you know, and to be empowered in their own treatment. And, you know, for everyone, the patient, the carer, and the healthcare professional to feel confident in that shift and transition of care. But it has huge implications, because, you know, like if a nurse isn't having to come to a patient's house anymore, but the patient is still getting the same standard of care, the nurse can be using their time elsewhere. And I think that's, you know, one of the big challenges that is being faced in healthcare at the moment is just that there is a shortage of skilled personnel. So any way you can improve efficiency is a good thing, I think. And, you know, like the other thing that we sometimes get questioned on is like, well, I mean, we're targeting a population that would typically be elderly. You know, are aged patients going to be able to embrace digital technology? Yeah, I think that question is being answered, you know, rapidly. That, you know, certainly the you know, the adoption of smart devices, the adoption of technical innovations by the entire scope of patients is rapidly occurring. So yeah, I think that, you know, this is going to be applicable, and it's going to become more and more applicable as people become more familiar with technology in healthcare.
Actually,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Leanne.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on that. Based on your observations, based on the patients and healthcare providers, I was just curious, is there any concern about removing this social factor, removing this interaction between maybe older patients and healthcare providers?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that, you know, we're very wary of taking away the one or two visits a patient may have that could be, you know, a large proportion of their social interaction for the week. We also, you know, appreciate though that, like, by empowering the patient to feel like they're more connected with their healthcare professional through digital solutions, then it's almost like there's a greater continuation. And we're not saying that the patient is able to just call the nurse any time of the day or whatever, but it's almost a bit like the nurse is there with them. And we think that, you know, in the future, there's a benefit of having societies or patient advocacy groups, for example, being formed. And we see that happening, you know, organically almost, you know, Facebook groups and other areas where patients are banding together. And, you know, that's being facilitated by, you know, digital innovation. So, yeah, on one hand, the face-to-face personal contact could potentially be reduced, but on the other hand, feeling part of a group or a society, you know, can be sort of supplemented as well from those types of digital connections that are being made.
Can I step in there? I don't think, I mean, I think FeelTech and everything else, it'll improve the efficiency and perhaps the timing, and everything is evolved. And, you know, I'm so into digital kind of, I suppose, improvements. But something like the vascular ulceration and actually bandaging is very highly skilled. Yeah. And it's not going to remove, you know, that 1 to 2 person operation to do it properly. Like, it's highly trained, highly skilled. So I think it's more a support tool that will have an advantage in the timings and efficiencies rather than take away from social interaction.
Yeah, exactly. And then just to point out too, right, like the compression therapy is one element of wound treatment. You know, then there's the dressing that's being provided, it's the debridement of the wound. There's a number of other things that also have to be taken care of. And you're completely right, Joe. Like, you know, that a lot of those kind of routines require someone who is a professional and can do that effectively. And in particular on some of those patients that just couldn't do that for themselves. There are some products that help patients that maybe are more mobile or, you know, are more functional, take on board some of those challenges. But yeah, as I said, there's no way that we're going to be doing away with the healthcare professional. It's just making it easier for them to effectively and efficiently use their time.
Great. While you're still preparing your next question to Andrew, I have also, Miriam has posted 2 links in the chat that if any of you are not EIT Health alumni yet, you can later click on the link and become one. And also Miriam has posted that I see some people are coming and going, that if you are going at one point, you can also click on the survey one. But in the meantime, I hope that there is another question for Andrew. Aaron or Hesham or somebody else, what do you want to know?
Hi, Andrew. I'm really sorry, but I kind of attended part of the session and I had to go and to attend another seminar and have come back. But from what perhaps just by way of introduction, I'm a medic. I'm a pediatrician working in the UK, and I'm an alumnus from one of the EIT programs with an innovation that it's kind of essentially a startup really. And certainly for me, one of the biggest learns I've had through this, which has obviously been the more painful stuff, is the fact that you know your preconceived ideas, solutions that you've got in your head, trying to kind of dispel those. It's just because you come with a passion for an idea, and you almost have to kind of delete all of that, and that's quite a difficult process. Which leads me to my question really, which is how do you avoid leaping to solutions? So the bit I caught right at the start was that you had a really, you know, again, you talk about the title from your talk, kind of that focus, or your ability to kind of focus entirely on needs and doing that kind of needs-driven methodology. How do you kind of avoid falling into a solution mindset, if you see what I mean, and just keeping yourself open to really recognizing the unmet needs?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I would be recommending, you know, like I mentioned earlier, to have a list of criteria. You know, what constitutes a good need, And then same thing for when you're actually coming up with a solution to a need, is like, what are the design inputs that need to be met? And yeah, it is a little bit hard if you've come up with a good idea and you know, you're trying to like shoehorn it into the list of criteria, that it can be a tricky thing to get out of your mind. But my recommendation is like, have a fairly, you know, a very objective list of things that needed to be achieved. And you know, whether that's for your need or for your solution. And then only once you're happy with that list and it makes sense totally objectively, then you can like use that to guide either the need, I guess, the identification or selection, or the solution pathway. Yeah, and you might find when you check your preconceived solution against some of those things on the list, it falls short and you have to go back to the drawing board of it. It's painful, but I can tell you, like, even after 8 months of going down the wrong technology direction, we made such a good decision of like saying, no, we need to let that go. And like, yeah, we're all the better for it, I'd say.
Yeah, because again, from what I saw at the beginning, that must have been quite a painful pivot, really, to kind of have put so much time into working out comfort. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. Liberating is the way I'm trying to promote it. Like, you know, it's gone, you've done the right thing, and you know, the world is your oyster now. You've got a blank slate. Let's like get this done properly. No, it was painful too. So yeah, but like I said, it's a lot more painful the longer you don't address it. Let's put it that way.
I think this could be one of the hardest things being a CEO, to make those kind of decisions that you know, I think psychologically losing something is, I think I've heard that this is up to 6 times more intense feeling than gaining something, that you either let go an idea or a technological way, or even maybe a staff member, like firing a misfit team member, that this could be, you know, psychologically very burdening.
Yeah, but it happens so often, like, you know, in business, and that's like, you know, the discussion before about the difference between academia and business. Like, you know, in academia, I would have done like another 2 years experimentation on why it went wrong. Like, whereas like, you know, the business side of me that I was trying to like come out says, all right, the bottom line is, if you don't do this, it's not going to be, you know, effective in the market. And so let's get it done. And yeah, like, you know, as I said, in the industry, they'll cut entire projects. So, like, you know, there's multiple people that have been put around this one idea, and all of a sudden, like, yeah, that's gone. We're not going to like bother with that anymore. So it's the way of the world.
Just one thing, just on that contrast, if you don't mind me asking a kind of a similar kind of question, that between academia and innovation, and one way I've been trying to reconcile it is this idea of a null hypothesis. So when you come up with an idea, if you're going to initiate a research study, your initial stance is an agnostic one, that my pill isn't going to work, and you set up with that mindset to kind of disprove the null hypothesis. So in a way, those kind of tests of change, which presume that you're wrong, are probably one way of overcoming the pain that you've discussed there, and therefore reducing your threshold to kind of pivot if there's one. So that's just maybe one thought.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's just, yeah, it's a different mindset in business. Like, I need something that works. Just give me anything. Like, you don't just, it's not about like my thing won't work. It's like my thing will work. Next.
Yes, but as saying next, and as in just a minute ago, we were discussing that certain things have to be let go. I'm very sad to say that our hour is actually getting up, and I want to thank you, Andrew, very much for joining and sharing your story with our community who are dialing in today, as well as all of you who are watching this as a replay on YouTube, either this year or 10 years from now. and definitely would have your learning nuggets along the way over here. And also thank you everybody who has joined us today. Aaron, Gillian, Heshram, Lysia, Miriam, and all the others who drunk beforehand as well. The good news is that this was not the only coffee with the CEO meeting. This was already quite a number in our series. If you want to see what are the next events EIT Health Alumni Network is organizing, go to alumni.eithealth.eu and you can see there is a nice calendar with all the events, workshops, coffees, webinars, and even job opportunities. But before we are closing, maybe one last word from Andrew, that if anybody watching today, or maybe let's say in the next month, if there is a way how they can help you and FeelTect to conquer the world, is there something they could do?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't like to put the hat out, but like I said, we are in the seed round at the moment, and we are soon planning to close that round. So if anyone wants to get in touch for an investment opportunity, I'd be very happy to talk them through our proposition. But yeah, if anyone wanted to get in touch in general with any kind of support, we're always appreciative to expand our network. So thank you very much for that.
And the best way to contact you is like sending you an email or LinkedIn request?
Yeah, either. Like, so our website, feeltect.com, has all of my contact details, phone number, email, and LinkedIn as well is great. Yeah, so yeah, would be delighted to be in touch and connected.
Well, brilliant. So everyone, feel free to LinkedIn with Andrew at feeltect.com. And if you want to be part of that journey now in the next week or weeks and month, you have a unique opportunity to become even a shareholder of this journey. Anybody else, if you want to see the next editions of similar sessions we had today, check out alumni.eithealth.eu. And if you like this video today, don't be shy. If you are shy, maybe asking a question today, don't be shy to put the thumbs up on the video, also on our YouTube replay. Thank you very much, everybody. And I wish you a lovely rest of the day and very healthy 2021 ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, guys. It was a pleasure.